So starting off today, we have the review of the HD800S from Sennheiser, which is their flagship or former flagship dynamic driver open back headphone. And this retails at, I believe, $1,400. I'm not exactly sure on the MSRP of this at the moment, since it is discontinued, has been replaced by the HD800S. However, those two headphones, this headphone and the HD800S, are very similar, and you could treat the 800S as a modification of the HD800 driver. So starting off with the build. The build of this headphone is something of an enigma. On one hand, you have in your hands, and it's very plasticky. There's plastic everywhere, from the hinges to the cups to the headband. However, this is a headphone that has really withstood the test of time. Very rarely do you hear about HD800 breaking, so I am quite confident that this is a driver design that is built to last. Onto specific areas of the build, you've got really beautiful silver colored cups. On the outside, you've got this very futuristic look, open back driver there, as you can see, and you've also got a very bizarre, almost aluminium-like material for the cups themselves, as you can see in the gap. Other than that, you've got plastic hinges, which are very reliable. It's quite solid plastic from what I can tell. And you've also got a spring-loaded hinge right there for a bit of front and back swivel. Got a bit of in-out swivel like that. And finally, you've got your height adjustment mechanism, which has clicks and markings on the sides. And this is one of those headphones that when it expands, it kind of goes outwards a little bit as well, which I don't like. I prefer if things adjust vertically down rather than outwards as well as downwards. So that is one area of the build I don't really like, but other than that, really, really solid. And the headband itself, as you can see, I've got a piece of spring steel there to give it some robustness. And from what I can understand, both the pads and the headband itself here is replaceable. You've got a foam headband there, which is quite comfortable, particularly so due to the lightweight nature of this headphone. And you've also got a bit of gap in the middle to try and eliminate any hot spots. Furthermore, you've also got these velour pads. I wouldn't even call them velour, they're more like some sort of foam, but they are, although thin, very comfortable due to the very light clamp that this headphone has. So this is one of those situations where the huge cups mean that your ears pretty much don't touch anything inside the headphone, which makes it very comfortable. I know for some people this design doesn't seem to work due to just the vastness of the pads themselves. However, I find that this is really comfortable and almost disappears on my head due to the lightweight nature as well as the huge pads and adequate padding up top. So with build out of the way, let's talk about the sound. This is, again, one of the most polarizing headphones that has ever existed. And it is mainly due to one main issue, or two main issues within the treble. Starting off the bass, this is not the most well extended bass, however, it is much better extended than other Sennheiser headphones, such as HD600 or 650. It does extend lower than that. Furthermore, bass control, detail and snappiness is quite fast. It doesn't have the same sense of slam and tactility as something like a Focal Clear. However, it does have a great amount of detail within the bass, as well as linearity and speed. And if you're someone who's after a very lean presentation, this might be a great amount of bass for you. Furthermore, with the mid-range on this headphone is again quite in line. It is surprisingly neutral. I'd say it's a slightly recessed. Male vocals do seem a bit distant, while female vocals does come through with enough airiness. So if you're someone who's after a lot of body in vocals, this again might sound a little bit thin overall, but I think that it is not too bad of a problem. I've heard plenty of thinner sounding headphones, and I think that with the overall signature that this headphone is trying to go for, which is a brighter, a more airy signature, the mid-range does provide enough body and enough authority to not make it sound unnatural or V-shaped at all. Furthermore, the treble on this headphone is where the most contention lies. The treble of this headphone is not forward except for two main areas, which is around the 6K region and the 9K region. And in those two areas, this headphone has two huge treble spikes, which really make things sound very sharp, very abrasive even. And it comes through with a lot of sibilance, because around the 6 and 9K regions, a lot of S sounds do sound very sharp in any recording, even if it's well mastered. And I've heard of people using tubes to try and reduce that problem. Once you remove those two peaks and you're able to assess the treble a little bit more accurately, the treble on this headphone is phenomenally detailed. All round, in every part of the frequency response, this headphone is one of the most detailed for its price, bar none. It's just quite a shame that it's so difficult to hear those details sometimes because of those two treble peaks, which catch your attention and kind of overshadow the rest of the treble. So again, very resolving treble, very well extended, speed and nuance, separation, everything you want, except those two treble peaks really put a dampener on all those excellent qualities that I've just listed for the treble. Now, for comparisons, I think that the overall detail on this headphone is, again, best for its class, I think, definitely. If you look at similar price competition like the Clear or the Aria or the LCD-X, the HD800 out-resolves them all, I think. I think that the Aria does trade blows with the HD800, where the Aria might win in terms of the bass, detail, and control. The HD800 does a little bit better in the mids and the treble, maybe except in the bass region, but elsewhere, HD800 is probably the detail king for its price. And to get better resolution than this, you probably have to go close to flagships in order to get better resolution. However, what this headphone doesn't have is great dynamics in terms of bass slam. It does have really good dynamics for the mids and the treble. However, the bass doesn't seem to carry a lot of weight, even if you EQ it drastically. I think it's just to do with the limitations of a 50mm driver, which is dynamic. And I believe that this headphone is one of those headphones that doesn't have a dome in the middle, and I have a feeling that might also limit the amount of bass dynamics that this headphone can have. But other than that, this is a very ultra revealing, ultra ruthless to any bad recordings headphone, and definitely is something that stands out in that aspect. Furthermore, you also have phenomenal soundstage with this headphone. That is probably the biggest selling point of this headphone, apart from the detail. The soundstage on this headphone is almost too wide. It is really far out. Things sound distant, things sound grand, things sound very spaced out, in the best way possible. However, I will say that it doesn't have as much height as some planars, but it definitely is wider than pretty much anything on the market apart from those really bizarre AKG K1000 style headphones. So soundstage is pretty much best, even out of any headphone, you could argue, out of any normal headphone. And furthermore, the layering and separation of this headphone is really good as well. That huge soundstage really allows the headphone to put things and put sounds in very different locations, and that creates a really good sense of separation and distance between different instruments in your mix. So that is, again, another really strong point of this headphone. Imaging is similarly really good. However, I will say that the center image is a little bit lacking in terms of compared to the left and right image. I think that's due to the fact that this headphone is too wide. However, the imaging elsewhere is impeccable, and I definitely recommend this as an endgame gaming headphone, because I don't think any other headphone has the same combination of laser sharp imaging and huge soundstage that the HD800 has. So overall, what do I think of this headphone? This is a headphone that appeals to a person seeking a particular sound. If you're someone who wants something that is bright, is ruthlessly detailed, and very wide, probably the widest headphone out of any regular headphones, this is the headphone you want to go for. If you're someone who wants something warmer, something more intimate, something with more slam in the bass, then I would look elsewhere. But regardless of that, it is quite remarkable that a headphone has withstood the test of time for almost 15 years and has managed to still carve out a niche within the current market and current competitors. So overall, I'd recommend this headphone to anyone that is after that sort of a signature, or is someone who doesn't mind using a lot of EQ to tame some of those treble peaks.